Okay, cool. I know that you have like your own intro that you're gonna add to this too. Well, we both do actually. Yours is just a lot more produced and better sounding than mine. But anyway, we're trying another cross-platform thing here. I've done this once before with another podcast, and but anyway, we might as well try it again here. So we might as well both introduce ourselves, and then to each of our prospective audiences. Not like we haven't heard each other already 4 times each, I think, on both shows. But I'm Zach with the Plaid Jacket Philosopher, and I'm here with Mark from Hey Mark. So, go ahead and introduce yourself. Even though everybody knows who we are.
Yeah. No kidding. This is gonna air most likely on both podcast platforms. So for everybody listening, what's going on? My name is Mark from Hey Mark. We just chat about mental health and self-development and just bringing up topics that don't get to come up on a daily basis. And I think that's pretty much what Zack and I are going to do tonight or today, whenever you're listening to this. It's nighttime for us, though. What's going on, Zack? How you doing, man?
Not much, man. A little bit low on energy. Still recovering a little bit from getting those 3 wisdom teeth pulled out. But I don't know. Today's kind of the first day I can talk again. My jaw isn't feeling like I need to keep it shut. So anyway, we'll see how this goes. It should be fun. We don't have to go too late since it's already getting later. Both of us are pretty early birds, so I imagine we won't take it too late.
Yeah, man. How's that mouth feeling, dude? How was the weekend? Were you able to eat anything?
Oh yeah, you know what? I caused a little bit of bleeding myself, but I was eating pretty quick. I think I went on about 48 hours of a fast, and I said, this is dog shit. Enough of this. I need to eat. And then sure enough, ripped a couple stitches out, bled a little bit, but hey, I was nourished and I'm still alive now. So I don't know, no complaints.
Did you get the dissolving stitches or did you yank them out yourself? Or do you have to go back? I mean,
no, dissolving stitches. I think that's all they do now, right? Why would they even put in the old school stitches?
I think, I don't know. I had dissolving stitches, I think, when I got mine done, but I ended up just pulling them out. They kept getting stuck in my tooth and it was like really bothering me. So I just ended up pulling it out.
Yeah. No, these ones are dissolving. But anyway, nobody wants to hear about my teeth or my, terrible breath that goes along with those open wounds in my mouth right now. So thankfully you can't smell it through this microphone and into your headset. But anyway, I figured we could roll into kind of a little bit of I don't know, current events today. We've got kind of a big update across Canada. It sounds like it's actually going to be spilling over into the States a little bit from what I had read. Well, we've got the Canadian trucker rally going across from British Columbia all the way to Ottawa. It left Delta, which is kind of the main Port of Vancouver on the west coast here. It left on Saturday or maybe Sunday morning, and it's going to be arriving in Ottawa on Saturday. And it sounds like even 600 plus trucks and big rigs are coming up from the States to join that as well.
Yeah. I saw that this weekend. Actually, I know a couple of people that left this weekend to head over there. The one thing, I think this is really cool, because I've kind of heard it being spun in a couple different ways in the media.
Yep.
But it's been interesting to see how many people kind of on all sides are supporting this kind of movement, because I think most people understand or realize, like, without this like kind of international relationship or just being able to have our truckers do their jobs without any interference, like, we don't get to function properly. And that's kind of an as above, so below situation. Like it's kind of like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I think it's interesting, right? Because I mean, everything, about world trade and everything with the world economy is so interlocked now. And so, but yeah, like you take out what a lot of people would kind of, I assume anyway, like maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but you kind of overlook the shipping of the material. You think about the process, about, the raw materials, but all of that stuff, but you overlook the actual shipping, like how it gets from A to B. And I think, it's obviously one of the biggest key cogs in world trade in getting even food to grocery stores, in getting, anything, any supplies that we need, getting it anywhere from A to B. And for that to just for them to kind of protest, to take a stand. And I know in this episode we're going to talk about, having a spine and the idea of cowardice and victimhood and all those good buzzwords. But it's it's kind of, it's crazy to see, to be honest, and it's kind of cool to see that everybody's kind of in this together. And I think they just have such bargaining power when it comes to taking a stand or speaking up against these government mandates. And like you had said, with how this is kind of swallowing up a lot of people are getting on board. One of the main things that I had seen today, put out by the convoy or whatever, was that the trucking convoy, and this is, I'm reading it here, the trucking convoy is not anti-vaccination. It is anti-government mandates. Many of us are vaccinated. We simply believe that every Canadian should be free to choose and face no discrimination or restrictions on their freedom due to their choice. And I think that's something that, we don't have to get into the whole COVID discussion too much. I think we're focusing on other stuff today, but the idea that, yeah, this isn't an anti-vaccination standpoint, it's just a pro-freedom standpoint, and it's a pro-individual choice. And I think that's why it's swallowing up so many Canadians.
Yeah, and I think that it's crazy how the argument itself has been so misrepresented this entire time, because I remember it was like probably a year ago, they literally tried to change the definition of anti-vax to being like anti-mandate of vax.
Oh yeah, I think that's in Merriam-Webster. I think that still is that way.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know who they're trying to fool, because I feel like everyone kind of still has the original understanding of what anti-vax would be. Like, anti-vax is not what any of this movement really is. It's a complete misrepresentation. So I feel like even having to state the fact, like, hey, we're not anti-vax, we're just anti-mandate, it's like kind of redundant. Like, it's like kind of like, yeah, we should all be aligned with that. Like, I don't understand how that even becomes an important thing to note. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. And to me, I think that that's a Canadian ideal. I think that's a Western ideal, that idea of bodily autonomy, of choice, of freedom, which is, again, what this whole movement is for. But what has been amazing to me, and I mean, it kind of rolls right into the cowardice. And speaking of spine, like, these truck drivers have enough spine to carry, the rest of Canadians on their shoulders, right? Like, it's pretty incredible for them to take this stance. And again, like, I've kind of said it since the beginning, but especially the members amongst them who are vaccinated, who are standing up for the people who, they aren't necessarily a member of that group. They're still able to cross the borders, like, unobtrused, and they don't have any problems with that. But they're standing up for their fellow truckers, their fellow Canadians, and their choice. And I think that's the most important voice in all of this, is the people who are vaccinated but still standing up for everybody's choice. And yeah, I think it's funny that they changed that definition. It's just so that they can use that definition to paint more and more people, right? So it's just othering.
100%. But the thing, I think there's so many good things to hit on with this movement with the truckers as well, because it's a perfect representation exactly of what you're talking about, with being the person that stands up for others, even though you're not part of the impacted group. Because we saw that big movement, it's kind of like this rippling effect, and it's kind of grown more and more. There was people that were a little bit uncomfortable with the masks, and then they were kind of, jumping on board with, we got to end these mandates, and not a lot of people were bought in. And then it kind of escalated further and further, and this crowd that is, kind of I guess giving resistance to these mandates to kind of, for lack of a better term, is growing more and more. But it's kind of, we've seen this movement in terms of, the fitness movement, when they closed down gyms it was just, the unvaccinated can't come in, but then vaccinated people can still come by as long as you wear your mask, etc. And nobody was really speaking up at that point. When gyms shut down for everybody across the board, there was a big push to open gyms back up. But then when gyms were open back up for, just the vaccinated, the movement kind of was a lot quieter. And I know that there's gyms and fitness facilities that are kind of more private, and they'll allow people to come in. But I think it's disheartening for people to see that, you know, they'll only get the majority buy-in when people are being impacted, when it's like the majority being impacted. But I think this trucker movement is so powerful because it is exactly the opposite. Like, it's like, hey, we're going to actually stand up for the people, even though we're not all being impacted. And that's like the first time where we've seen this representation of, you know, Canadians kind of uniting together, no matter what.
Yeah. And again, like I mean, if I don't think it ever should have had to have come to this, but you know, Canadians and, you know, I mean, if this happened in the States, it'd be Americans the same way too. But anybody who relies on trucking and moving, you know, especially food from coast to coast, right? That's the biggest thing. It didn't have to come to this. Like, it didn't have to come to the trucking sector potentially bringing the country to its knees, cutting off supply chains or at least severely limiting them in order to get people's attention. But it has. And for them to do that, I mean, you can already see it in the spins of the stories, right? I mean, even I think it's the Canadian Trucking Alliance, which is one of the unions representing truckers. Like, they're denouncing it. Like, they're getting defamed. They're getting painted as crazy. I mean, even I think they're trying to get that GoFundMe labeled with a terrorist organization so that the drivers can't access that over $4 million that have been raised, so that they can't access those funds. So, I mean, you're seeing these people take on a lot of, you know, damage to their reputation, a lot of tarring and feathering that's getting thrown at them, and it's just trying to break them, right? But that's what I mean. Like, even, you know, even through everything that's gone on, like, I have I wouldn't say that I have an issue with people who are on board for the sake of their health. You know, they trust in the science, they trust in everything that's going on, and they truly do believe that this is the best way out, while still maintaining, obviously, the fact that this comes down to a choice, right? Like, that's the biggest thing to me. But it's the people who are just wishy-washy. They're like the jellyfish in all of this. You know, they just go along with the ebb and the flow, the up and the downs. They don't want to make any definitive stance any which way or the other. They just want to go with whatever public opinion is. Those people drive me crazy. Like that level of cowardice. It's too far in to not have an opinion on it. At least stick your neck out and voice your opinion at this point. You know, like, it's too far in. It's affected too many people's lives. Every single person on the planet, at least in Canada and the US, has an opinion on this. I mean, unless you're living in a state like Florida, where they're like, COVID, you guys are still dealing with that? Like, have fun, right? Like, I don't know. To me, like, that's what I really admire about this thing, is just they're sticking their necks out, they're getting their backs up, and they're taking a lot of abuse right now in the media from, even, again, their own unions, and they're doing it anyway because it's something that they believe in, and it's something that I think as Canadians we should all believe in. And I mean, I'm proud to say that this thing originated in Canada, and that it really does have that effect to really unify Canada and get us back on course.
Yeah. And I mean, man, there's so much there that you said that's valuable, because just the fact that, you know, people they hold certain opinions, but they're not willing to speak about them, or they're not willing to act on them. Or, I mean, the other side of it is the fact that there's going to be people that'll speak so loudly, even though that they don't even have skin in the game. Mm-hmm. But dude, that is the most frustrating, actually. But the thing is, because my podcast, I talk about mental health all the time, right? And I worked in a gym before I did this. So I kind of got so used to hearing people say, you know, hey, you know what, Mark, I want to lose 20 or 30 pounds. And then I see them posting things on their Instagram saying, you know, they just went to Tim Hortons and grabbed like 24 boxes of donuts, and they're going to eat it with their buddy. And then I get people in my DMs on Instagram talking about, you know, struggles with their mental health. And, you know, we were joking about that post I made the other day of people that, you know, they complain about certain things in their lives, but they aren't willing to, like, put in the work to change it.
I love that post.
Dude, yeah, it made me laugh my ass off just making it, because I was like, there's a piece of me that's like that. Like, I'm not so egotistical. That's like, you know, I'm not like that as well.
Yeah. Oh, but all of us are.
but those things, man, like that's it. Just kind of it reminds me of all the time when I hear my friends or people on social media or people on podcasts or anywhere that are just kind of like, hey, like um I don't really think that the vaccines are, dangerous, but I really just think that they should be optional. Like that's where I feel like most vaccinated people stand. I think they're like, I think that these are safe and effective, but they shouldn't be mandatory. These should just be optional. I think most people think that way.
I think so too.
You
I think
know,
I hold that opinion.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that that's how most rational people are. They're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to do what I think is best for me. And I think that most people can do the same. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But when they hold that opinion, then when it comes time to kind of make the decisions that would be kind of placing the building blocks for those things to be possible in society, then that's where there's kind of a misconnection or a disconnection, I suppose.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it's like kind of just like the actions aren't aligned with the words that are being said.
Oh yeah, and I mean, but I think like even what you had talked about in this on a personal level, it comes down to making a habit, right? Like you had said, like we all have that in us. Like we can all self sabotage, knowing that this isn't what we should be doing, but we do it anyway, right? Or knowing what we should be doing and not doing it anyway. But I think it just becomes you've got to create a habit out of at least ignoring that aspect most of the time and doing what is right. And it's just about creating a habit. And I think that then flows outward, right? Like it bleeds into other areas of your life. Like again, like you said, making that decision not to have a donut because you're trying to lose 10 pounds, that's a personal decision. It doesn't affect anybody else. Nobody else even has to know about it unless you post it to social media, which everybody does nowadays. But then that, if you make a habit out of that, you can then, it's a building block. Then you can start to perform that out in life in other areas of life where it actually does affect other people and it bleeds into other areas of life. And, if you say something, you hold an opinion, you're then able to kind of act on it or to show it or exhibit it in real life. And I think that, it all comes down to starting working on yourself. It's, you got to start working on yourself before you start to try to fix things around you. It's just the way it is. If you don't have those habits ingrained in your own life, then how do you expect anybody else to ever take you seriously? And I think that's a huge thing. And actually, before we get off the topic, just because I forgot to talk about it too, is that gym thing. There are more gyms opening up and coming out in defiance of that too. Like they aren't done at this being their finish line. Like they're still rampaging forward. So I do think, you look out there, maybe they aren't as vocal about it, but they're out there. just so you know.
No, I know. I appreciate it as well, man. And I'm not saying that there isn't any. I do know of a couple here locally, and I don't want to talk about them too much and drop names, but the fact that we have to discuss it like this is like what scares me the most. And it seems like even with last year with like, yeah, we can go into free speech if you want, but I was going to say even last year with like some of the bills that were being passed, it feels like that's getting even scarier and scarier to talk about these things, man.
Well, that's why I think again, if there's any time to, not cow to these mobs or, to really shake off or challenge that cowardice that we all have built in and, exercise your spine a little bit, it's now. Like, I mean, I'm not worried about saying it because the gym that I go to is wide open about it, but Pump House Fitness, like they're wide open against every mandate. They were open through the last shutdown. They're done. They're absolutely done with any of these PHOs. They aren't worried about it. They have been cited with tickets. And every time they've gotten cited with tickets, their membership has grown. They've made more money. They've come out farther ahead than before. Like it's the fear of speaking up that silences most people. It's not the outcome. Like, they get handed a $1,500 fine. Well, then they sign, I don't know, 20 new memberships, that day, which is an extra grand a month. And, cumulatively, like it just keeps going up. Like they're coming out farther ahead every time that this happens. They just get more notoriety. And it's been happening to that. I think it's that Iron Energy gym in Kamloops. And there's these few gyms that are spearheading it. But, the fear of what might come down is way worse than what actually comes down. Like you start to speak up, it's going to help business. It's going to help. You know what? You're going to lose a few people. You're not going to please everybody. But I think that more and more people, as we enter like, almost year 3 of this mess, um, you know, the time to speak, I think, was a long time ago, but now more than ever, like more and more people are speaking up. Add your voice to it. It doesn't have that same, again, it's the fear of speaking up, I think, that is a lot worse than the actual fallout from it. And I think, once you get over that fear, once you kind of put it out there, just good things come. And you can you can sleep better at night. Like you feel better about it. It's something that you've gotten off your chest. I don't know. I can't explain it, to be honest. I've like we've gone over before. I haven't really cared that much what people think of me. I just don't. I have very low in neuroticism, but yeah. So that's just. I think that's just ingrained in me. But from everybody that I've talked to who's finally gotten it off their chest and made a stance or spoken out publicly about it, they just say that it's a weight lifted off their shoulders. It just feels better.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like as well, like I gotta say, I definitely agree with what you were saying, because I even made a joke about this on my Instagram the other day. I was like, for any of you that are scared that you might like piss people off or, lose friends or anything like that over speaking up over things that you believe in, like to a testament to exactly what you were saying, like literally every single time I do, my followers go up every single time. Like more and more people are kind of more interested in that. And I think there's something behind what you're saying as well, because I think when you start to actually like say the things you truly do believe in, and you start to actually embody the philosophy that you believe in, like, because I feel like people gravitate towards doing that because they lack kind of like a bit of identity. Like I feel like they maybe don't feel like they have an identity or have a purpose or have a direction. So they kind of latch their identity onto these ideas. And that kind of, we've discussed how that makes that concrete. But what I've been really realizing recently is they're scared that that whatever they speak about is the hill they have to die on. Yeah. Like I feel like a lot of the time, and that was even like some of my fear, what caused some of the hesitancy I had about speaking about things on social media or even on my podcast. I was like, well, what if I come out like next year and it's wrong? And then I was like, wait, there's nothing wrong with that. Like people are so afraid to like just say what they think now in fear that in a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, they're going to get canceled. Like, why can't we just say, yo, I was wrong? New information came out and I changed my mind.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I mean, another thing about that, all that too, and I think we've talked about it before, and I know that it can be a really positive function of not just society, but of like our friendships, right? Our friend groups, is that they kind of keep us sane or they keep us on the right track. And so, but I think it can obviously go too far that way, where you base all of your self-worth on what other people think of you. And so you end up trying to form yourself up to what you think they would like, just so that they end up liking you more, when in reality, you aren't even being true to yourself, right? Like you're trying to fool yourself in an attempt to fool everybody else. And it's stupid. Like, I think it just eats away at you again. Like, actually, I won't say her name, but your girlfriend shared a really good thing in this chat that you've got today. But I love the quote. I'll just read it here. But before you silence yourself to keep the peace, ask yourself, what is the worst thing that can happen if I use my voice? Usually the answer is, this person may dislike me, and that's it. If you're silencing yourself for this reason, they already don't like you. They only like a fictional version of you. Raise your voice. And to me, like, that couldn't be more bang on if, I don't know, Shakespeare wrote it. Like, it's perfect. Like, you're only fooling yourself, and then you're doing that to try to fool others around you. Like, you're just eating away at yourself. You're not being true to yourself. You're not actually acting out what you believe. Like, that is just going to eat away at your soul over your lifetime. Like, why put yourself through that? Why? Like, they don't even like you. They just like the image of you that you're portraying. Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do that. And I mean, we can talk about it politically, because I feel like politically people do that. There's the extreme people on the far left. That's like 20% of society, or 10, 15. I don't know what you'd attribute that the equivalent on the far right, and then there's kind of like the remaining 60 to 80% in the middle. And I feel like all the time they're just trying to like kind of please the extremists because they're convinced that that's kind of the majority, and it
Mhm.
kind of destroys the rest of everything for everybody because it's like, no, majority of us kind of think this way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
but it happens everywhere. Like it happens politically, it happens literally everywhere because it happens in high school, it happens on job sites. Like people are so afraid of, even just think about our friendship. Like we started off by talking about just like, oh yeah, dude, like all I listen to is just podcasts while I work. Like, you know, it might
Yeah.
not be super common with everybody else in the trades. You know, you might be mixing with a bunch of different people that, if you're talking about what they think, your typical tradesman banter would be, you wouldn't be able to develop the friendships or, any type of relationship in life. You'd just be literally living in a lie and then wondering why you're so uncomfortable all the time.
Yeah, yeah, or why you never talk about anything that interests you, or why you never run into anybody who has the same interest as you. It's like, well, obviously, because you're not even portraying yourself properly. Like, yeah, like I don't know. It all just ties into, I think just, I mean, part of it obviously comes into like spine. We were talking about knowing yourself and just being able to actually present yourself how you are. Like, I don't know. To me, it's freeing, and yeah, it's just I can't imagine another way to live where you're constantly living trying to appease somebody else's image of you.
Well, bro, we're talking about it in terms of like the things that you talk about or the things that you like or your interests. But
Mhm.
like when you start to do that and you're doing it with values and like kind of like your actual integrity in society, then that's where things get fucked. Like,
How so? What do you mean?
well, like think about this, man. Like we're talking about this, like, okay, in like a person to person conversation, like, your interests or the things you talk about. But then think about if you're like, okay, I'm gonna just, since I'm compromising already the things I talk about, you know, maybe some of the people aren't really talking about things that I value. Maybe I shouldn't really talk about my values ever again, or maybe I shouldn't even uphold them around these people that don't seem to uphold the same values as I do. And then if everyone starts doing that, you kind of add to that group that's not doing the values, and it contributes to kind of a society where, we kind of all have these agreed upon values that we've all grown up around, but we're kind of drifting towards, the illusion that other people aren't aligned with these values any longer. And so we start acting out of those values. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Sorry, it's getting late here, but yeah, I think so. I mean, to me, like, I don't know. I like again, I think it's because like I don't know. I mean, we all go through like different evolutions, right? Even through like friends groups as you grow up, right? Like I know I'm not much older than you, but I know that like even through me, like just recently over this past couple of years, everything that's happened, like you kind of go through another cycle. I think that the stress of everything is kind of squeezed it out of everybody. But you do kind of, and I mean, I think this last 2 years specifically has been kind of a trial by fire, and it's specifically has to do with values, right? What do people value most in each other, in society, and whatever? And it's tough. I mean, I'd have to say, I mean, there's some friends who I've gotten infinitely closer to, and some who I've essentially completely lost contact with over the past 2 years, right? And I think it does come down right now almost specifically to values, and it's tough. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's been tough, it's challenging, it's rough to break friendships that you've had for years, right? Or at least to feel like they aren't what they were, or they aren't what they were. And it's but I don't know. I mean, I think it's necessary, at the risk of sounding calloused. That's life, like you're gonna go through times where situations change, friends change, your surroundings change. I mean, maybe it's moving somewhere, or maybe it's starting a new job, or whatever the case may be. Like, I mean, how many times have you had friends that you thought were inseparable at work, but after you realize it was really the job that kept you guys together. Like, and I have countless friends like that. I have people who I can still now, if I pick up the phone, call them, we'll talk for 4 hours and it'll be like we never missed a step, but we just don't see each other anymore because, you know, work is what bound us together and what kept us going. But, you know, so I mean, I think it's a fact of life. And again, without trying to sound calloused, it just happens. And, you know, whenever it does happen, I think you end up learning more about yourself and learning more about who those friends are that really do hold the same values as you at the end of it. And so really you do come out ahead despite, you know, that burning off of friendships hurts at the time, but then you're left with something new and thriving.
Yeah, and I found that throughout the last couple of years of my life, like I used to think of it like I had to like cut people out, like I had to like actually like X them out of my life. Like there had to be a conversation like, yo, we're not friends anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I used to literally think that. And I've realized in the last couple of years that kind of people force their way out of your life naturally. It's kind of by literally doing exactly what you're saying, right? Like when I talk about it in regards to mental health, I talk about it more in regards to behaviors and habits, etc. But what you're talking about is the exact same thing. Because when you do that with your values, when you actually live in alignment with your values and you do act every single day, every single one of your behaviors is in alignment with those values, then you obviously attract A, what those values produce, and B, people that are also aligned with those values. And then obviously your connections grow way quicker and way, well, deeper, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you're right. Like it just, I don't know. Oh, sorry. I just removed my exterior hard drive because I was finally done deleting all these excess files. But yeah, like it, I don't know. It's just something with life, right? Like I don't think you can avoid it. I don't think there's any point in trying to avoid it. And again, like when it happens, you're left with a better understanding of where you're standing, a better understanding of what your friendships are like, and just, I don't know, everything's a lot clearer. So I don't know, like I don't really see many negatives. I mean, yeah, it hurts. It's tricky, but it's part of growing up. I think that's one thing that I think everybody's pretty accustomed to is that life isn't easy. And if you, I don't know, that's another thing like we can get into today too, is just, I don't know. I mean, everybody's afraid of conflict or of anything that could be cast as, I don't know, some kind of obstruction or difficulty in life. Like, and you do a really good job of applying it directly to physical workouts into the gym and to making that connection, which I think is the easiest like mental picture to make. And the easiest way to practice it in life is it's like, well, I can physically conquer this hour in the gym, this 90 minutes in the gym. I can conquer whatever other hardship comes my way. Right. And I think it's really useful. It's something that I've applied as well in my life. But yeah, the idea that you know life is going to be easy and you're just going to breeze through it it's a joke. And like you better get accustomed to the idea of facing stuff and facing stuff voluntarily so that you're ready when something blindsides you.
Not only, yeah, no, I 100% agree. It is the uncomfortability that develops you, and that is like kind of, I like the way you said it, how kind of fitness shows you that, you know, I can kind of progress in this way. I can kind of do this thing and it makes me progress. But I think there's something even more beautiful to that, which is, and this is kind of my own little like spin on it, which is it's the uncomfortability that's developing you there. Because you could go into the gym and just hang out there and kind of nonchalantly move some things around, and you won't get much progress, no matter how much time you do that for. You could spend 10,000 hours doing that and nothing will happen. It's the actual stimulation of like kind of the uncomfortability, getting outside of your comfort zone, which is what causes the development. And that's even, you know, that can be said as well with living with your values, or kind of circling back to that, because, you know, when you actually start to have uncomfortable conversations, you know, hey, you know, that doesn't really align with my values. I don't really think that flies around here, whether that's in your household with your children or, you know, wherever it could be. Just living in tune with those values. And, you know, sometimes that might be uncomfortable, but that's where the development is. And that's how you even fine tune your values.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's funny. I had a conversation the other day somebody at work, was a customer, was saying something along the lines of, they were asking me a question about all this stuff and about my status, and I said, I just answered truthfully, and they said, "Oh, like, are you uncomfortable?" I'm like, "I've been uncomfortable for the past 8 months." I'm like, "I am perfectly comfortable being uncomfortable." I'm like, "Are you uncomfortable?" And they're like, "Well, kind of." I'm like, "Sorry, but yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm perfectly comfortable being uncomfortable at this point, and I love it. I mean, I think it goes into, again, like what you had talked about, and kind of a willingness to face it and face that uncomfortability and adapt to it and try to overcome it. It also comes right along with, and I know we had talked about this off mic, is refusing that victim mindset. That also goes back to the idea of, facing what is going to make you better, not just having that donut despite the fact you're trying to lose 10 pounds. Because then if you have that donut, that same person is going to say, "Oh, I'm still a fat shit. Like, I haven't, poor me, woe is me." It's like, refuse that mentality altogether. Like, that's a perspective shift that I think everybody should go through. Like, even facing whatever's going on now, like, I refuse to view myself as a victim of anything. I'm not. I'm willingly taking this stance. I'm willingly speaking out about it. Nobody's forcing this out of me. I mean, yeah, people are trying, there's certain things that you're not able to do, or you've got to find other routes to do them, but I'm willingly taking it on, like, right? So I think there's a lot to be said about refusing that victim mentality. Not that there aren't actually victims of things in life, but so much of it, I mean, so much of the stuff that we may say we're a victim of, we aren't. It's our own damn fault a lot of the time. Like, and that's not victim blaming. That's not anything like that. I'm talking about my own experiences and things where I've said, "Oh, woe is me," or I can't believe this happened to me. And it's like, but if you peel back the layers a little bit, it's like, "Oh, I should have done this differently. I could have done that differently. Like, why did I take this mindset into that?" And then you see all the cascading effects of, because I did that and I felt sorry, I did this, and then that happened. Like, I don't know. I just think that that's a perspective shift that a lot of people should go through, and they should try their best to reject that idea of victimhood whenever they can and take responsibility, because it also means you can change it, that you have the power to fix things, as opposed to just being at the whim of every little thing, that every way the wind blows.
Bro, you literally hit on every point I was about to say. I love that, man, because I was gonna say, I think that, for starters, the fact that you say it the way that you do, like, just being in the sense of, this isn't happening to me. I'm willingly taking this on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to accept the fact that, someone's going to do this to me. You're like, no, no, no. I'm doing this to myself. I'm proving a point. Like, if you don't understand that, so be it. But I'm doing this, like, this is inside my head. This has nothing to do with the way that you look at me or the way that you look at yourself. So I like that kind of the way that you take that stance. It actually even changes the way how I look at my life. I like the way that you said that.
Well, and it shifts the power to you, right? Like, because you're in control of this situation. And, like, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I just wanted to point that out too.
Oh, I love that, because that's actually what I was going to touch on next. Is I feel like the word victim in and of itself has been fucking hijacked. Like, I feel like when you hear about the word victim, like, what's the word victim supposed to mean? It means someone was like a victim, like, of a crime, maybe, or something that happened to them, right? Like, if you're like a victim of burglary, like, you didn't control the fact that you had your stuff stolen. But then what next? Like, it's not like everyone in the community just gives you all their shit.
Exactly.
Like, you're just supposed to go about your life and go out and get some, like, go and get some more shit then.
Well, yeah. And I mean, like, to me, it's more just the idea that we can be a victim of everything, like, I don't know. I can't even think of an example right now. I don't know. I mean, even recently I was in a little car accident, and it was nothing, like, nobody got hurt, but I could have said, "Oh, I'm a victim of circumstance," even though actually in my case I rear-ended somebody. So it wouldn't be, I'm not a victim in any way, shape, or form in this. But I have been rear-ended before. And when I look back on it, sometimes it was because I break late, or I had influence into that circumstance as well. And so to me, it's just, now it's something that I can learn from. It's not something like, oh, every time I go on the road, like I might get hit, like somebody's going to hit me. It's like, no, like I can do my best to mitigate this situation. Like I have been hit before, and I played a role in it, so I'm going to correct that. So now moving forward, there's a less likelihood that I'm going to get hit. Like, and again, not saying that there aren't legitimate victims, people who just, stuff happens to everybody, where we all do have legitimate points of victimhood in our lives, but it's trying to wrestle away the power in as many of those situations as you can and try to learn from it, take responsibility for your part in it, and then use that to adapt and get better.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I was going to say as well. I want to circle back to what I said as well. It's not that I don't believe that the community shouldn't come together or anything. I'm just saying that you're not entitled to that. But yeah, I like what you're saying about car accidents as well. Cause even using that analogy, it's not like when you get into a car accident, you're like, oh, I'm not going to go drive because I might get in an accident because I got in an accident before.
Mhm.
It's like, well, now you actually know what to do in an accident. Like I remember listening to your episode where you talked about rear-ending that guy, right? And I remember you talking about how kind of like you guys didn't know how to handle the situation. And that's fucking awkward as shit, dude. Like that in and of itself is so uncomfortable. But now going through that experience, it's not like you're like, oh shit, what if I rear end someone and I don't know what to do again? Like, you know what to do now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know what to do in case that happens again. Cause like you said, life throws curveballs, man. It's not like that's your last fucking accident. Real talk, like at least now you know what to do. And fuck, dude, you got 4 boys. You're going to deal with another 4 first accidents, man. Like,
No, for sure. Yeah, for sure. They're wild, they're crazy. But yeah, no, it's just interesting to me. Like I think it's a perspective shift, especially with everything that's going on nowadays, because I hear it a lot. Like I mean, you hear it too all the time, like, oh, I'm a victim of this, I can't do this, I'm not allowed to do this, they've taken this away from me. It's like, no, like look at all the other things you can do. Like for me, for example, I've tried to use that time to, remodel a bit of the house, to spend more time with the kids, to read a whole hell of a lot more. I mean, yeah, there's certain things I can't do. I also saved money by not going out, for 4 meals a month. And my wife and I would go out for dinner. There's money in my pocket. Like I don't eat, but like it does me no good. It does me no good. And if I wanted to, I could change that. I could change that in, one trip to the clinic. If I wanted to, I could change that. And there we go. Now I'm magically allowed to eat inside again. I just don't want to. I can take that power, and it's yours. You're not a victim of anything. You're the master of your own destiny, like 99.999% of the time, apart from the odd catastrophe that'll strike people. But why dwell on it? Like there's actually, I know I've talked about it a bunch of times, but I should post the link again, or if anybody's searching through my socials, you can find it. But there's an episode called, or there's an article called "The Evolutionary Advantages of Victimhood." It's by Quillette magazine. It's incredible. Actually, a lot of the studying was done at UBC, which is the University of British Columbia, which is close to both of us, closer to you than me. But it's an incredible article, and it goes through the evolutionary advantages now that we place on victimhood, and the kind of the social stock that we get from it by being the weakest person in the room, or by the most person in the room. And it's a fascinating article. Like I'm not going into the behaviorist, or I think we're back now.
I gotcha.
Did you lose me for a second?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
I know. I think my interconnection, my internet, yeah, my connection went unstable. I was just talking about checking out that episode, or that article by Quillette, that evolutionary advantages of playing victim, because it's incredible.
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't know how to word this exactly, but I feel like this must have been like relevant, or I mean, it must have been in every single generation, but I feel like our generation is the worst for this. Do you know what I mean? I feel like every generation says that, I guess is a better way to say this. I feel like every generation says that their generation.
This is that we're the worst.
Yeah. But I feel like we're the worst for this like victimhood bullshit, man.
I think a lot of it's social media, right? Like we're able to convey it, and then I mean, you feel good getting the oh I'm sorry, or you feel good getting the recognition for it, and then you feel good for giving the recognition. And I mean, it's also, I think it's a stance where even when you're saying I'm sorry this happened to you, or you're giving that, like I think a lot of the people who constantly highlight their victimhood, or their status of it, I think it is coming from a place of, you're really trying to highlight that and trying to use it as a kind of a social leverage, like a stick to kind of pull yourself up with. But at the same time, like when you say, oh I'm sorry that that happened to you, I really am sorry that that happened to you, like I think a lot of people come at it from not necessarily the best perspective, like because they're still feeling like, oh well, at least I'm not in that situation. Like it makes you feel better about yourself on two fronts. And I mean, I know personally, like back in the past, like it is so much harder to congratulate somebody on something that is really good than to say, oh I'm sorry that happened to you. It is so much harder to because you feel your own shortcomings in it too. So there's like, I don't know. I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword there, because it's really easy to say I'm sorry that that happened to you while still feeling like at least that didn't happen to me. I mean, nobody's openly going to say that. You're never going to say that. But I think that there is a part of that comes out in that, because then it's so hard to say, oh, congratulations, or oh, I'm happy for you, when somebody got something that maybe you wanted, or maybe deep down you're jealous of, and you're not actually happy for them. Like, I don't know. I think I'm trying to not ignore people's points of real victimhood, where they really are, something terrible happens. I mean, I think that needs to be, we need to come together to support those people. But I'm trying to make more of a point of congratulating people on points of value in their life, and like to really be happy for them, not to just say congratulations or oh I'm happy for you, and then deep down be like, god damn it, like I wish that was me. Like I'm actually trying to be happy for people now, and I don't know, I like it, I feel a lot better. It's actually just good to feel gratitude for other people, and to actually be happy for their success. Like I don't know. Again, so much of this stuff comes down to perspective. Like it's so much of life is perspective, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much you've dove into like kind of like the law of attraction or any of that stuff, or if that's kind of like too woo woo shit for you. But I've always kind of felt like, when you get envious or you get like kind of that negative feeling when someone achieves something, I feel like that's like telling the universe that any sort of achievement will make you feel negative. Like I feel like that's kind of the way I look at it. And then the same thing goes for like when something happens like positive, like say like your podcast blows up and you get 100 million subscribers on YouTube, even though you don't even have a YouTube channel. And I feel envy. Like what I'm telling the universe at that point, or God, or however you want to look at it, is like that getting that would be bad. Like that's the way I kind of look at it. But I think that regardless of the way you chop it up, I think that, the ability to look at someone that gets something that you'd like or something that they'd like, and it makes them really happy, and look at them, even though that's not you, and feel happiness, is like kind of the erosion of the flawed thought that we're all separate from each other. Like, I think that what you're doing right now and what you're saying is like, there is no other. Like, I'm just happy when other people win because I love winning.
Mhm.
Like, I just love victory, and I love, prosperity in life. And so when other people get that, that makes me excited. I love humans. Like, that's what you're saying, like, and I don't understand how that's not a thought for all of us, or
I
why do we
don't
have to even try and make that a thought? You know what I mean? Like, why do we have to try and focus on that?
Yeah, I don't know. We get so sucked down in envy. I mean, especially with social media now, right? Because we're always just showing each other's highlights, and that's it, right? You don't see the lowlights in people's lives, generally speaking. And I was going to say, even taking a different perspective on this when it comes to being happy for other people, I've been reading a lot of Ayn Rand recently, which she basically comes from this standpoint that selfishness is a virtue, and it's interesting. I wouldn't say that I would go I don't know. I wouldn't say that I would align with purely objectivism philosophy, but she makes a lot of really interesting points. And like, if you wanted to come at this from a selfish perspective of why you should be legitimately happy for other people, I mean, for me, to you, for example, if your podcast blows up, I will not only be happy for you because I'm happy that you're getting that success, but I'm happy because I'm on your podcast and we're friends. So if you blow up, there's a good chance I'm going to blow up too, or at least have a broader audience to be shown to, right? So I mean, like, there's so much stuff that like you can even take a selfish perspective on it and still be legitimately happy for people. Like, I don't know, when a rising tide lifts all boats, that's a good saying. And it's something that, if all of a sudden you get elevated, your friends are going to get elevated too. I mean, they know you, they're going to be experiencing a different lifestyle. They're going to be able to kind of ride that wave. And hopefully that translates into their own success. Like, I just think that there's so many different ways to look at it, whatever way you want to slice it, whatever perspective you want to take. Um, you know, being happy for people legitimately for their successes in life and getting rid of that envy. I think envy, it's so big and it's so ugly nowadays too, right? Like it just seeps into everything, and it's because everything's on social media and you see it everywhere. And I mean, yeah, it's just, if you can get rid of that, if you can actually be happy for people, even if it's for your own selfish reasons, be legitimately happy for people. It's a different way of looking at things.
Yeah, and I think that even comes back to, like, you touched on this earlier, and I didn't want to jump right on it because it's kind of all I talk about. But you were like, just trying to make that improvement in society comes down to just improving yourself, right? Yeah. And I think that that's kind of where this all kind of comes down to, is like, kind of, when you feel envious, it's kind of it's I mean, this isn't the main reason, but I feel like part of the reason is because you feel like you're not really capable of achieving that thing yourself, right? Like when I hear about, for example, like, this is just me, like when I hear about people that are young and they're young homeowners and they buy a house, I'm like, man, that like almost seems unachievable for me. So there's this part of me that wants to feel envious, right? But then I think back and I'm like, okay, but I've made myself uncomfortable and I've achieved X, Y, and Z. Like, if I know that I can keep scaling my goals bigger, then I could achieve that thing. Mm. But nobody's interested in starting to look back and, they want to point the finger at how they can improve society, but they don't want to improve themselves. Right. And that's why they kind of feel that kind of, because they never try to improve themselves, they never do improve themselves. And of course, they never feel confident. So of course, all they're going to feel is that negative energy or envy, right? Like, that's kind of where it all boils down to.
Yeah, and that self-sabotage is real. Like, people, you will self-sabotage your own dreams, your own goals, your own ideals all the time. Like, if you let it, right? If you let yourself do that. And I mean, I don't know about you, like, it's funny because I'm really not a big motivational guy. Like, if you but I know that everybody else gets motivated differently, right? Like, even this morning I had to get myself going because my wife and I are working on this pretty big task, this pretty big goal, and it's going to require a lot of work and it's a lot of moving parts. And I need to really berate myself to get myself in gear. Like, it's not even like, it's not bringing myself down, but it's like, I don't know. Like, that's another thing too, is that I think everybody has, you have a different driving force too, right? So when it comes down to trying to get to those goals, I mean, sometimes it is like digging deep and kind of lashing yourself across the back, like I do. Like, I could never run a motivational podcast, because if I tried to motivate anybody else like how I motivate myself, it would just come across as me yelling at people, because it's like,
come to my podcast, bro.
Yeah, I am my harshest critic. Like, what I have to remind myself of is how many times I pussied out and I didn't do something and then regretted it. And it's like, I don't know, but I mean, like, you're right. Like, everybody has their own way of doing it, but being envious is never the way to go about it. It's about taking personal responsibility, about recognizing your own input in it, because that's the only thing you can ever control. So if you want to get better, you're going to have to fix yourself, because there are a million things that you have no control over in life. And there's one thing that you have control over, and that's what you do, how you respond to a situation. And why focus on the thousand other things, the million other things, when you can just focus on yourself? And it's the only thing you can control, and it's going to give you the best shot at advancing forward.
Yeah, even right then and there, like that's a perfect way to explain it. Because even so, say like you're listening to us right now and you're like, man, Zach and Mark, they don't fucking get it, man. I feel envy every single day for these people in my life. Like, fine then. If you're gonna feel envy, if you're gonna feel anger, if you're gonna feel any emotion, then use that as fuel. Use that as your motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why not use that envy to be like, man, I'm gonna make those motherfuckers jealous, man.
Yeah, you want to prove them wrong? Do it. But what do you have to do to prove them wrong? Like, again, it doesn't matter what your motivation is. It doesn't matter what gets you out of bed, what gets you amped in the morning. Like, you just focus on what you can do, and whatever your motivating force is, whatever, you can deal with those demons later, but at least get yourself into gear, out of bed, and going at something.
Dude, I love that you said that you're like, you want to prove them wrong, then do it. It literally reminded me, dude, I forgot I completely posted this earlier. I even said earlier, not on the podcast, but I said, you know, they claim victimhood, or they are shouting it from the rooftops to try and get attention. But the real way to get attention is to do something that people want to fucking pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think we're almost at the risk of repeating ourselves at this point. I mean, I think it's funny that you had said that too, is that you always talk about the same thing, and you wanted to glaze over it earlier, because I mean, I do the same thing. Like, and I think that's something that I think I'm just kind of getting used to now, is that, I mean, the more podcasts that I listen to, the more of the same stuff I've kind of picked up on. And not that it's a bad thing. Like, maybe that's the perspective you like out of somebody, and maybe the fact that they can tie that into everything is good. But yeah, you're right. Like, do something that people will take notice of. Do something to be recognized for. Do something that you're proud of. And then, I mean, if you're proud of it, other people are going to be proud of it, or other people are going to want to do it. They're going to take notice of it. Like, again, it can be for selfish reasons. It can be for whatever reason you want. You know, deal with that issue later, but at least get yourself driven, motivated, and moving forward to doing something. Like, I don't know. Like you had talked about, just it ties into cowardice, to not having a spine, to not doing what's best for yourself, to just sitting there and, you know, being a jellyfish, just going with the motion of the ocean. Like, take control of something. If you want to get over that feeling of apathy, and that you aren't enough, like, you are enough. You just have to do it. Like, you know, at the risk of sounding crude, like, give your nuts a tug, bud, and go. Like, just go.
Dude, I love it, man. And I keep thinking, like, I'm like trying to think about, like, if it was social media that brought this, but like, why? I feel like cowardice and kind of virtue signaling are like the two things that we kind of are dealing with at the moment. Like, I feel like that's kind of the foundation for every problem right now that we're facing in society, like those two things. And I think they kind of are basically the same thing in and of themselves. Like, they
I
kind
mean,
of go hand in hand.
maybe, like, I try not to kind of get,
Like, how did this start? That's what I'm saying. Like, how did this start? Like, this, like,
oh,
virtue signaling and just like kind of like this cowardice of not wanting to speak up about what you actually believe in. Like, how did this start, man?
well, I think virtue signaling comes along with social media, because you can take a stance or say something without actually doing anything, right? I mean, you look at the protest movements, you know, of the hippie movement of the 60s, or of, you know, like, all these different revolutions through history. Like, you weren't just like, you actually had to do something. Like, you had to back your words up, because you weren't able to just post it on social media and then people think that you're doing something great. You know, you're virtue signaling, you're ooh, look at me. It's like, no, you were actually out there on the front lines doing something. Like, you were protesting the wars. You were arguing for, you know, gay rights. You were arguing for, you know, an end to segregation, but you were on the front lines. You were doing it. There was no virtue signaling. You were actually a part of a movement. And I think that deep down, like, and I don't think that I don't think that everybody who virtue signals, or probably even the majority of people who virtue signal, do it from a bad place. I really don't. Like, I think that a lot of us want something to fight for. I really do. Like, it's something that, we want something that we can stand for, that we can be proud of, that's bigger than us, right? Something that is worth striving towards. And I think a lot of people get lost along the way, and some people are just jackasses who virtue signal and have no skin in the game, have no real interest in it, or no understanding of the repercussions of it, or what else is going on. Like, of course there's going to be those assholes, but in general, I think that people want something to strive for. I mean, I know even in myself, like, and I've checked myself a number of times on this, like, even when it comes to this whole anti-mandate thing, like, am I just doing this for a cause? Am I just doing this because I want to be a part of something bigger? Do I think that maybe this is something bigger? And is this just the end? Like, is this not a means to an end? Is this just the end? Is the end the purpose of feeling like I'm part of something? And I've checked myself multiple times, and I don't think so. Like, this is the means to the end. The end is the realization of bodily autonomy. Like, that is what I want to see. It's not, my end goal isn't just to be a part of a movement. My end goal is to actually see this fulfilled, this done. But like, it's intoxicating. I mean, it's real easy, right? Like, you see people online who kind of, they wait to see where the discussion is going, right? Like, at the beginning, they're all stay at home, save lives. And then I'm not talking about the people who legitimately change their mind, who have a change in opinion, because you can tell that too. And there are a lot of people like that, but there's a lot of people who, it's stay at home, save lives. And then it's like, oh no, like, freedom. And it's, you can tell the difference between like the virtue signalers who are just going with whatever public discussion is, and then people who, some people do legitimately change their mind, and some people are just in it for the sake of being a part of a movement and being a part of a cause. I mean, it's the same thing that happened, and I was at it in the 2011 Stanley Cup riots. Like, I didn't take part in the riots. We were downtown. We ended up going back to my buddy's apartment, but there were people there who were there with the end goal of starting a riot, and that was a very small minority. Like, if you look at the population, I think of Canada, I mean, there's 10% roughly is what they're saying, 10 to 20% of people who aren't vaccinated, who really are taking this seriously. And of that 20%, probably 10% of them are just doing it because it's a political stance, or it's a stance they want to be a part of a movement. And maybe half of them, the other 10% of the country is saying like, no, like, I really do believe in this. And then there's probably another 20% of the vaccinated individuals who believe in the science of the vaccine, but believe that this movement is just, it's worthwhile, that bodily autonomy should be maintained. But again, going back to the riot, I mean, there was a small minority of people who just wanted to start a riot. That was their end goal. There's a lot of people there who weren't there for a riot, but they got swept up in the momentum, and then that momentum carried them, right? And they, just get tied up in what's going on, and they want to be a part of something exciting, some form of excitement in life. Because I mean, we don't have the same kind of conflicts that I think we used to, like past generations did. I mean, they were worrying about World War I and World War II and real shit, like real life or death shit, or, the social movements of the 50s, 60s, 70s, like real shit that had real consequences. And now, I mean, I think it's enticing. I think a lot of people, and again, I don't think it's coming from a bad or a malevolent place. I think people just want to be a part of something bigger, and it's tough to find meaning nowadays. Like, for a lot of people, I think that's what people struggle with. I mean, you've read the book, I've read the book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's one of the most fundamental books I think I've ever read in my life, and it's talking about how Viktor Frankl found meaning in life despite going through 12 different, I think it was 8 to 12 different concentration camps. Like, yeah.
He just did you see that there's a new book released that's a new translation of one of his other books?
No, I didn't, but I'll look it up.
It's called Yes to Life in Spite of Everything.
Oh, that sounds like a good one.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. It's more about his actual like practice, not his experience in the internment camps.
Okay.
Just literally about his practice and his just dealing with patients. And I think what you're talking about kind of hits even in what some of the themes there, because I would say like when you're saying like purpose, like that sounds a lot like Viktor Frankl's theories, man. Like obviously, because that's what he talks about is purpose. But
Mhm.
I think of it as well as like kind of a feeling of like adding to society too. Like
Yeah.
it's like kind of like if you don't feel like, and like not that people don't add to society. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like it's an internal feeling of like if I feel like I don't add to society. So what's the easiest or quickest way that I could add some value?
Mhm. And again, like I don't think it comes from a bad place 99% of the time. Like I think people just want to make things better, and they know that things aren't perfect. And so they're just trying to find a way, a lot of the times the easiest way that they could make things a little bit better, even if they don't fully understand it, which I think is the case in, when you think of classical virtue signaling, where it's like, all right, fucking pipe down, buddy. You don't even understand what you're talking about, or the consequences that come with that. It's like, settle down. Like, but yeah, I think people are just, for the most part, looking to affect change somehow positively.
So you got a pretty optimistic view moving forward then. It sounds like.
It's funny because yeah, I would say that I have a pretty low, I don't know. I don't have a very high opinion of like what people are capable of, but I think that yeah, I guess I'm optimistic in general. I mean, I'm optimistic about most things. I'm optimistic seeing that the UK is dropping a lot of their restrictions. I'm optimistic seeing that, we're putting an end to contact tracing. I'm optimistic about a lot of things, but I think I'm also realistic. And I think spending a lot of this last 2 years reading about the 20th century hasn't instilled a lot of hope or faith in humanity either. Maybe that's my own fault for focusing on that century, but I don't know. I guess so. Yeah, I'm generally optimistic.
As someone who also reads quite a bit of history, I will say this has been giving me a bit more optimism. If you look further back, it gets worse.
You make a good point. Yeah, yeah. There's no short of barbarism in human history.
Kidding, man. I'm hoping that there's gonna be some good human history written soon. I don't know. I feel like this, yeah, going back to the truckers movement, man, like it's kind of something that it almost it feels like it could be like a red herring.
Yeah, you think so?
I don't know. I just feel like there's been so many times over the last 2 years, and I feel like everyone kind of maybe feels like this, but I feel like there's just been so many times where it's like, hey, by the way, like we're almost out. We're almost out of this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, Canada's been dangling that carrot for a long time. We all remember when 70% vaccination was the goal of 12 and up, and now we're at, I don't know.
80, 90.
Well,
What's next?
we're over 90% at 12 and over. And
What's next?
I hear you. I hear you. I mean, to me, I don't know. I don't know. I really do think that I think the good things are coming. And it was funny because I know we were talking off mic, but I was at a rally in Vancouver this last Saturday about an end to the mandates, obviously. And I had my two oldest kids who are 10 and 6. And it's funny because we were just talking to people in the crowd, and we were walking along with them. And this elderly lady like said to my kids, she's like, there's a chance that your kids might read about this in a textbook one day, and you're gonna be able to say you were there. And I don't know. I don't put that much importance, I think, in anything that I'm a part of. It's just because I'm more like anything that happens in my life isn't going to be that important. Like that. That's just my view. Maybe it's self sabotage again, but I just it dawned on me though. It's like, that's interesting. Like maybe, just maybe, they'll have pictures from this, or they'll talk about these rallies one day, and my kids will be able to say to their kids or to their grandkids, like, oh, I was there. Like I was there with your grandparents or with your great grandparents, right? Like, and I think, I don't know, it's cool. I think I am optimistic though of moving forward. I'm optimistic with the way things are going, and yeah, I don't know. I'd never given much thought of it to being a red herring, and I don't think I will, because I'm just trying to stay optimistic. But yeah, I don't know. I just take it as it comes.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Before we jump off, you want to talk about that rally a little bit because I was gonna ask you a couple questions about like kind of not really how you feel about them, but I guess maybe how you feel about them. Do you feel like do you feel like they are, because obviously there's progress being made and I do appreciate them, but do you feel like the rallies themselves like are valuable or useful? Like obviously you find some value in them, otherwise you wouldn't bring your family there. But like kind of I was wondering to pick your brain because I've been to a couple as well, and I've kind of been asking myself this as well because I've had the same feelings as you in terms of like questioning myself, like is this really something I believe in? Like is this something that I'm just doing to kind of maybe feel connected to, or like a an identity grab because of something else I believe in, so I latch on to this idea. And then, I find myself going to these rallies and I'm like, man, I used to laugh at people that would go to protests and here I am.
Mhm.
Like, so I was kind of, I've even kind of had this debate in my head, but I was wondering just so like for anyone else that's kind of having this debate in their head, like, what's the point of going there, to just put it bluntly?
Well, to me, it's the same point of speaking up or of having an opinion on anything. It's to have your voice counted, right? It's to me, it's more than anything. Like, yes, it's selfish in the sense that it kind of boosts your confidence. To me, it helps me feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this, right? Because it's really easy to feel isolated, especially in 2022 when everything is online. It's we just don't have those same social bonds at this point. We aren't allowed to socialize the same way, all of that stuff. So to me, part of it is a socialization aspect where I just like to know that there's other people out there who do think the same way. I'm not alone. But the biggest thing to me is to show other people. Like I often keep in mind that, and you'll see people in the high rises in the skyscrapers in Vancouver banging pots and pans out their windows, right? Like in support. And for me, it's more about those people. It's about the onlookers. I mean, I even posted something on Instagram on my story. I think I tagged CBC Vancouver as we were walking right outside the CBC building, and I said, "Ignore this, CBC," and because I know that none of them get any recognition in the media, right? And so that's kind of frustrating. But at the same time, what can you do about it? There's nothing you can do. So the only way to do it is to show up in numbers, in mass, and it's for the other people. It's for the onlookers. Like maybe next time, I don't know, Vancouver's so densely populated, maybe an extra 200 people from those high rises. Now, instead of banging their pots and pans, they're out there marching with you. So you get 200 people, and then, a few hundred people more come in next time. Like people start to see it. You see snippets of it on social media, and it just starts to grow that way. Because I mean, when you're not getting any attention from the media. You're not getting any attention that way. I mean, if you saw reports of it, it was that a couple hundred people were there. I can tell you it was probably around 6 to 7,000. And, but all they had was a little picture at the very beginning in front of the Vancouver Art Gallery saying a couple hundred people, a couple hundred hardcore anti-vaxxers congregated today. And that's not it. Like I'm walking beside, like I said, like elderly ladies. I'm walking beside families, other people with kids, with people are just coming out there. We're talking, we're socializing. There's food trucks there, which good on the food trucks. I would capitalize on that too. You got 7,000 people walking around Vancouver working up a hunger. I would be parking my food truck right at the art gallery too. But it's just, I don't know, it's a good, fun social atmosphere. And to me, more than just the effects that I get out of it. Like this was the first time I brought my kids to it. I wanted them to see what it was, and we explained it to them. We explained to them that this is for the right to bodily autonomy, that you can have the vaccine or you can choose not to, but that needs to be a right that's maintained and up to the individual. And I had to obviously explain it to them in different words than that, being that they're 10 and 6, but I got the point across. They understood it. And it was cool for them to see other kids. They were hanging out, running around with other kids. A bunch of my extended family was there, so we were running around with them. We were all hanging out. Like it was just a good, fun social gathering. And hopefully, to any onlookers or to other people who see it leaked on social media, they come out and join next time, because there's strength in numbers. It's strength in solidarity, and it's the same thing with adding your voice on social media or with these truckers. I mean, there's strength in numbers, and you can't ignore numbers like that. Like if the marches in Vancouver got up to 20,000, 30,000 people, that's something that you cannot ignore. It'll shut down the city core. And just like these truckers are planning on shutting down the city of Ottawa, the capital of Canada, you cannot ignore that. And so it's strength in numbers. And again, like it's also less scary. When you have strength in numbers, it's not as scary to add your voice to it or to stand up for it. It takes the fear out of it because it doesn't feel like you're taking the stance alone.
Dude, I honestly, I love that, man, because that's the same way that I felt when I went to the two that I went to. But it's cool to see that. I think that it is having that ripple effect before, because I was kind of honestly a little disheartened after kind of like the first time I had gone to one, because I was like I felt the same things you felt. I was like, man, I don't feel alone anymore. Like, look at all these people. Like, there's more people than I could fucking count if you gave me a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was probably the most amount of people that I've been around since I can't even remember the last time. The last time I went on in an airport, which was over 5 years ago now, and I don't think airports will look like that again. But I love that, man, and I felt disheartened only because I saw all these people that kind of they were there, people that I had known or people on social media that I knew. And I was like, okay, like all these people believe in what I believe in. They're going to stand up the way that I'm standing up. And then I kind of saw them all go back to their regular lives. And, you can kind of argue about what standing up looks like to you. But I just feel like it comes down to kind of what we were saying before about values and kind of living with your values. Because I just feel like it's just so difficult when people's words are aligned with one thing, but then their actions empower the other side. And it's such a difficult thing. But I think that we're kind of climbing out of that now when we see things like these truckers movements. Like, I think that only things like that could have happened had the rallies happened first, because they wouldn't have seen how much support they would get.
Exactly. It's one step at a time. I mean, yeah, that's all it is. And like you said, like you can have different ways of viewing, like, what does standing up mean? What does it count for? I mean, like, you've heard podcast episodes that I have had with Carla that I really enjoy doing, like, and we purely got connected because of speaking out about this. Like, a lot of connections that I've made are just because speaking out, you get in contact with like-minded people, and honestly, it emboldens you, right? Like, I think I said it even in the last episode, like, I get lots of crazies now too, right? Like, it happens. It's unavoidable, right? It's unavoidable. But at the same time, it's good. Like, it's good. You start to get connected with a lot of like-minded people, and I don't know. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I think since just kind of speaking out more than anything, like, I just feel comfortable with myself. Like, I don't feel like I have anything left unsaid. And I think that's the most important thing. Who cares what other people think? If you can go to bed at night and you're comfortable with it, and you'd feel like there's nothing else left on the table that you should have said or you should have done, that counts for a whole hell of a lot, even if it doesn't get recognized on social media.
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of boils down to everything in life. Like, that's kind of like, man, just did you try your best to do everything to the best of your ability throughout your day in general, not just like in terms of like politics or making these huge, massive stands in society.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't worry about the numbers either. Like, don't worry if, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, yeah, like, even on social media, you'll get the odd person who shouts down to you or might delete you off social media, or, just tells you to shut up or stay in your lane or whatever it is. Like, at this point, like I said earlier, I mean, we're coming into year 3. If this hasn't, especially as a Canadian, with the draconian mandates and the way that our government has cracked down on it, you're fucking lying if you say that this doesn't affect your life. And so, yeah, you've got a right to speak up about it. Every single one of us has been affected by this and is still being affected by this, despite the fact that I can turn on my TV, watch an NHL game, an outdoor game from Minnesota with 38,000 fans in attendance, packed shoulder to shoulder. while, our hockey arenas are shut down because nobody's allowed inside, or you're allowed 50% capacity. It's so if anybody tells you that you should just stay in your lane, you have nothing to say here. Yeah, I'm sorry, but fuck them, because you do have a voice in this. This has affected our lives for long enough. And yeah, if you don't speak up now, then when? What are you going to wait till you're 5? Like, what's stopping you? Like, who cares? Like, you're going to break a couple of eggs. You're going to have a few friends that, change their opinion of you. But as long as you're being true to yourself, I mean, this goes back to the quote that we had read earlier that your girlfriend shared today. Like, as long as you're being true to yourself, I mean, like, why bother lying just for other people's sakes? Like, you're just destroying your own soul. Like, just be true to yourself.
Yeah, 100%, man. And not only that, but I'm just kind of thinking back, because when you're saying things like, it kind of not just, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I think when you're talking, what was I just thinking about? Dang, dude, I
It is
got
getting
lost.
late. We're talking about just staying true to yourself, about, like, speaking up, about finding your voice, not worrying about, if a few people.
No, you know what it was, man? I was actually I got caught up because I was thinking about a couple of the other conversations that we had a couple weeks back. And it just, it kind of crossed my mind when you were thinking about, watching the hockey game and being able to kind of look at, in America, seeing how these people are just functioning in their regular everyday lives. And then we're kind of being impacted by this on a daily basis. And I think that when you're talking about everyone being impacted, that was the thing that reminded me of what I was talking about, or what I was thinking about talking about. You have to forgive me. This will probably be the last rant I get to go on before my brain just completely shuts me down right
Oh
now.
no, I was saying we're gonna have to close this out pretty quick. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, this is something that impacts everybody. And we kind of got into this mess because we were kind of forced to not sympathize with people, because we all should sympathize with people, but we were kind of forced to kind of over sympathize with a hyperinflated number of people. And I think that everyone kind of jumped aboard because we all are compassionate people. We all do care about our fellow citizens. That's kind of the value that we have in Canada.
I was gonna say, I think that's a staple of Canadian society. Yeah.
Exactly. Like that we're all compassionate, that we all care about each other. And I think that we've kind of like taken our eye off the ball off that, because we've now kind of divided ourselves and kind of thought of people as other. Because I think that at this point, like you're saying, you'd have to be looking at yourself in the mirror and lying to yourself if you think that this hasn't impacted. Like, obviously, I'm going to take the approach of mental health because that's what I always talk about. But everyone's been impacted by this, mentally, physically, like in every way possible, financially, emotionally. Like, it's kind of time to just take a look at, and I wouldn't even be like, I'd love to have every single mandate end tomorrow, but that's not where I would even say like would make me happiest. Would make me happiest would just be able to have people look at one another and be like, dude, I just want the best for us at this point. And be able to look at the facts of how many people this is impacting on different levels that isn't always tangible. Like the actual impact on Canada for everything that's happened in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, like I think it's torn apart the fabric of the country. I mean, you talked about it there as othering people, but it's so true, and it's something that Canada's always been a welcoming place, an open place to different mindsets, different beliefs, to different everything. We've had medical autonomy, we've had you have patient rights, you've got you do have individual rights afforded by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but that just in case clause, I forget what exactly it's worded as, that's really getting stretched to the point where it does feel like it's doing irreparable damage, I think, to the social fabric. And the unfortunate part of all of this, and I've talked about it recently, is the remarks right from the Prime Minister, referring to anybody who is unvaccinated as they, as them, as these people, as quite literally saying that they're, for the most part, racist, misogynistic, against progress, anti-scientific. All of these terms, again, coming from the highest office in the country, emboldening people to hold those beliefs, emboldening that othering of people in Canada. If you substituted any classification of people, any group of people for unvaccinated, any group, I don't care what group it was, any race, any ethnicity, any sexual identity, and anything, if you substituted any group for unvaccinated in that, that would be unacceptable speak by any country standards anytime right now, right? But it's not, because we've come to this point where it's fine to other people who have a different opinion on what is going on. And again, by changing the term of anti-vax, it doesn't even solely mean people who aren't vaccinated. It means anybody who is against the mandates. That means anybody who is against childhood vaccination, despite the fact that they're incredibly low risk, despite, any of this stuff. If you hold any opposing views to today's current zeitgeist, you are othered and you are thrown into that group, and there is no snapback for that. There's no reaction, nothing. It's accepted from the highest office in Canada. And that's what worries me the most.
Yeah, I've kind of come up with this saying in the last week or two, and this is going to probably be the most clever thing I say all night, but I came up with this saying, man, and I don't know if I came up with this, but this saying has been in my head for the last week. But the quality of a society is directly related to the amount of tolerance people have for other people that are different than them.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. I think it's a really good point.
I feel like that's where we've kind of lost control of everything. Where we've kind of gotten to the point where we accept these labels that people kind of. In what world did we ever think of, vaccinated or unvaccinated before 2 years ago? That, mm-hmm. Those terms, I never thought of those terms before those things, but we've now allowed, we've just accepted, okay, that's the way we categorize society now.
Mm-hmm.
It seems so insane to me.
Yep. Yeah. And you substitute those terms for anything else, and they're complete no words. You cannot say that. You can't classify people that way, but for this, it's fine.
Yeah, and it's yeah, and in any other way, even just the way that say the lies have come down or anything in the media, it's kind of if you were to substitute that in any other situation, if you were to be yo, I'm in this relationship and this person lies to me all the time, and because of that, it kind of pushes my life in a really negative direction, but they say it's for my best interests and for the good of my health. Every one of your friends would be you need to get out of that relationship instantaneously. You need to do it tomorrow. And you'd be I guess I should. Yeah. But for this situation, it's no, all's good, man. It's all good.
All's good. Just keep listening to them. And that's the other thing too, as far as why it matters to show up in numbers, and why I'm so optimistic about this trucker thing, because there's estimates of 500,000 people walking into Ottawa. We got to remind these fuckers who they work for, who their bosses are, because it's real easy for them over these past 2 years to, in Trudeau's case, to rule from his little cottage coming out on his front steps to a bunch of cameras and microphones every day, from his little ivory tower. You got to remind these people who they work for, who are their employers, and who they serve, because, there is politics was considered public service, right? You're working for the public. I don't think that anybody, especially in the Liberal Party, or even for that matter, the official opposition party, the Conservatives, I mean, a lot of the discussion coming from the leadership there, it doesn't sound like they're keeping that in mind at all anymore. It's they know best, they're the rulers, and we're just lucky enough to have them watching out for us. We got to remind these people who they work for, who their employers are, and that this title is public service. This isn't all-knowing overlord. You're a public servant Start fucking acting like it.
100%, man. I've got my own kind of theory on that in terms of how we should adjust the way that they behave, but we can save that for another time. I just think they should be paid directly proportionate to the economy of their jurisdiction. That's the way I look at it at this point.
Yeah, it would snap them into line pretty quick.
Could you imagine that? Municipal, like on a city level, on a provincial level, and on a federal level, you get paid directly proportionate to the economy of your jurisdiction.
Like, what do you mean? I added 3 trillion in debt. Well, sorry, buddy. Your kids,
Pay up.
yeah, your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids are still going to be paying off your personal debt, buddy. So should have done a better job.
Yeah, Alberta, for some reason, they fluctuate quite a lot.
Hey, Alberta's the economic driver of Canada. We can't bully them too much. Without them, province of Quebec wouldn't even exist anymore.
Yeah,
and neither would the Maritimes.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I don't think and looking at, and this will be a shot at every other province, shot fired in every direction, but I couldn't pick a better neighbor than Alberta right now.
No, me neither. They're the best. But yeah, anyway, man, I should get off here. I'm dozing fast.
Yeah, man. Well, my brain was only on for about half of this, so I'm pretty much half asleep already, bro. Thank you so much for your patience with me tonight, man.
No worries. Yeah, I guess we'll release this on both and see what happens.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thank you so much, man. Have a good night. All right.
Thank you, you too.
Peace out, brother.